Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Relevant. I'm your host, Trey Slickers.
And I'm Naia, your co-host.
Today, we have two very special guests. Our student guest today is...
My name is Havan Yang.
He is the SA president here at GLA. We also have the principal of GLA here today.
Yeah, I'm Darwin Garcia, and it's a pleasure to be here with you today.
So, Mr. Garcia, we were at a camp a couple of months ago. Can you tell us a little bit about that camp and what we were doing there?
Yeah, so every year the Lake Union puts on a leadership retreat or a leadership camp where the leaders from all of the 7 or 8 senior academies in Lake Union get together, and we have some spiritual programming and we have some breakouts so that you can become better leaders in the areas that God's called you to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I know we were all there. I know Naya's the SA pastor, and I'm the junior class president, so we all got the opportunity to go there. Havan, what did you learn from that?
Actually, I think it was a really good experience to get to know more people doing similar things in their school, and getting to meet the other leaders, because in a couple of years we're going to college. Well, for me next year. So it's nice to see who is in the Adventist community, bounce ideas off of each other so we could be better leaders and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
And it was there, Trey, that, as a principal of the school, I have all of these leaders surrounding me, and we all recognize that young people really are the ones who are going to have the greatest impact on their peers. Part of the reason why you're doing this podcast, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, man, we have all of this potential of leadership. I'm surrounded, not just by potential, I'm surrounded by leaders. But untapped, it's just, okay, you have leadership abilities and leadership qualities, and that's it. And there's no use to it. So we started talking about something. You want to share with the listeners what that was about?
Yeah, so we got back to the Eagle Lodge, I think it was, one of the nights, and we all just started talking about intentionality. I didn't even know what intentionality was up until this. I think we kind of made up the word.
No.
No?
I mean,
I never heard it before.
I
up until-
have, but I never thought of the importance of it,
Yeah. And we kind of dove into the subject of intentionality and what it was and how we can bring it back to the GLA as students and to show it. So, Havan, can you tell us a little bit about what intentionality is?
Well, I guess intentionality could mean different things for different people. Intentionality could, I guess usually it's used in the context of being good. I guess it could be bad, but I think intentionality, what it means to me is a purpose.
Yeah.
And actually in health class the other day, we were listening to a talk about blue zones. And it's actually proven that a lot of people that live longer have a purpose for why they wake up in the morning. I think that's really good. And I think it's not just for Adventists. I think intentionality is something that a lot of people just in the world strive for. But when we have that intentionality of God, I think that's what really sets us apart.
Yeah, and we can be intentional about lots of things, right? We can be
Yeah.
intentional about brushing our teeth, okay? So we have determined purpose and determined effort every morning to brush my teeth because I don't want my breath to be stanky. You guys want to talk to that special someone and you don't want to bump into them and have that stinky breath or whatever.
Yeah.
Or you may be intentional about making your bed, and at GLA, you have to make your bed, right? Or you get docked points or whatever. Or you need to be intentional about calling your mom. Trey, you need to call your mom.
I need to call my mom.
Yeah, we need to be intentional
I
about.
need to call my mom.
And
I've
I
been
need to
putting
call
it
my
off.
mom too. These are things that we need to be intentional about because they're important. But intentionality in the spiritual realm takes a whole new level, right?
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
So, talking about intentionality, how did we bring back intentionality to GLA? So we kind of put down a baseline of what intentionality is.
Yeah.
Now, how did we bring that to GLA?
I think it all started from, especially from the pastor trio, me, Cora, and Marilyn.
Yeah.
My bad. So we had our breakout room with all the spiritual leaders in all those schools, and we were just thinking the 3 of us as we went through that breakout session, we were like thinking like a lot of things could be made better if we just really put our mind to it, if we like really put our effort into it, you know? Like there's a lot of things we do like on a regular basis, like chapel, vespers, whatever, like those worship things. But like sometimes we just think, oh yeah, it's chapel. Yeah, let's just do it like how we always do it.
Like I know we like didn't practice song service. That's something that we brought in.
Yeah.
That really I think elevated our chapel.
Yeah. So like in the past we'd always think like, oh yeah, it's chapel. Okay, last minute thing, get this, get that. Okay. But like now what we really did is that we like started like planning that. And like we also started having religion department meetings. We did not have that. Yeah. And then so I feel like after that, after thinking how much intentionality is important in the spiritual world, like how much it is important to like prepare for like worships and like to like really set the tone for each worship, it made things a lot more like elevated, you said.
Yeah, intentionality also, when you think about it, it's what's the purpose, right? So you're intentional when you have a specific purpose in mind or a mission in mind. So for example, when we're talking about preparing for song service or leading worship, the purpose is to lead your classmates into a worship experience, right?
Yeah.
So when we come into it, haphazard or not practice or just, hey, we'll put it together last minute.
We don't know the song.
The result is going to be just that. It's going to be haphazard. We're going to haphazardly lead our peers into a worship experience. When we prayerfully have intentionality in what we do, especially in the spiritual realm, we're praying that God will lead us to fulfill the mission or the calling or the purpose that he's called us to. In this case, for example, in this example, in leading our peers to worship. And when you did that as young people, like you're saying, it didn't just elevate it, it made it meaningful, it made it purposeful, and it was a felt presence from day one, or felt difference from day one, that there was a specific purpose in mind. We wanted to worship. And after that first worship service, it was felt. I mean, people were talking about it. Like, it was different today.
Yeah.
Why? Because it was intentional.
Yeah.
And I'd like to also make the point that maybe even though it was hard to be intentional too, because all of a sudden we had to pull people from recess.
Yeah.
And it was having to do the hard thing, because spend time with my friends or elevate worship. And they really spent the time, and when they did that, we got to see the results.
I'll be honest, like at some point I felt like burnt out from like having to like supervise like recess practice every day. Like I just wanted to get a break. I was like so tired of it at one point. I was just like so done with it, but I knew I had to keep going. So I feel like also like when we want to do intentionality, when we want to have intentionality, we also really need God's strength in it. Yeah.
And also another thing that we kind of talked about was, when Jesus came down to earth, he was a servant to the people who were lonely, who were heartbroken. And another thing we talked about during that meeting was being intentional about including people who might be new to the school, might have come from, not the best background, who and being loving to those people, including them in our circles. Yeah. Because a lot of the time what the leaders do, the students will follow that.
Yeah.
And like, I really see a difference, because the other day, we had a few new students because it's second semester, and like a group of us were like, oh, we should go talk to them. It wasn't, oh, I want to stick with my own group. It's, oh, I want to go out and make new friends, bring new people into my circle. Get to know them better. And I think that's a amazing thing I'm so proud to see in my peers, and it's really nice.
You kind of touched on it. Is it natural for us to have just a innate intentionality? Is it something that comes easy to young people and old people? I mean, what do you think? You touched on it. It wasn't easy for you to keep kind of plucking along, right?
It's easy to have like natural intentionality, but like to like be consistent and to like actually put effort in it. That was draining.
Yeah. So time and effort was a challenge, and then you were talking about being intentional about including other people. That's not always easy, right? Because what your desire is to stay within your comfort zone, right? Yeah, sure. What's comfortable, what's easy.
Yeah.
And being intentional takes some some determined effort.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There are some examples in the Bible.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, if it's okay to segue to that,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
some
Yeah.
examples in the Bible about people who were intentional despite their circumstance. So I thought of Queen Esther, right? Queen Esther has, she's in a foreign land. She's brought into this awkward situation because of her physical beauty, and she's selected to be queen, right? And there is a law. It's not even like a suggestion. There's a law. You cannot approach the king unless what?
He extends out his scepter.
Until there is an invitation, a very
Yeah.
specific invitation. Here's my scepter, and you're okay. Otherwise, it's and I wonder how many days and nights there was like that prayer time, those tears, that I don't want to do this. It's easier to stay in my comfort zone. But just that determination of, okay, God, you're calling me to this. And it's very clear. You've called me for such a time as this, right? So now I'm going to put my all into it and be intentional about your calling. And she risked her life. Sometimes we think about, oh man, it's uncomfortable. She was putting her life on the line and was in an effort to save her people. Now that's a really extreme case of intentionality where she's like, hey, I'm going to be intentional even if it costs me my life.
Yeah.
Do you guys think of any other examples from the Bible where people were very intentional about what they had been called to do?
Joseph.
Yeah, I was about to say.
When he was enslaved, I really think of that example. When he was working for Potiphar, it says he did everything to the best of his ability and beyond. And we really see him move up in the ranks. And he was intentional in the prison too.
Yeah.
He was intentional, and then he was intentional as the second in command, as the prime minister. And he saved a nation. That was another, I guess, what I thought of intentionality in the Bible.
I talked about it in my chapel talk once, right? How Joseph, he was sold by his brothers, and if I was betrayed by my brother, I would be depressed. I would be sulking in my prison cell or wherever it is. But what Joseph did, he probably did think about it, but he didn't let that overcome him. He still did his best, even though he was in a place that he didn't want to be. He still did his job to the very, very best he can.
So despite the circumstances, there was still an intentionality to fulfill the purpose that God had for his life.
Yeah.
So what about you guys? Despite your circumstance, there are some days where you just don't feel like it, right? How do we fulfill the purpose? And as an old guy, there are days that I don't necessarily want to get up and go to school and do my thing,
Yeah.
But God has called me to a specific purpose. So you have those days, I'm sure, as SA president, right? You have stressful days or days you just don't feel like it.
Yeah, for sure. There's always, that day for anybody. But I think what's really important is recognizing what God has given us, the gifts that he's given us, and, taking advantage of that. Going back to the story of Esther, she, it's usually a lot of people are like, oh, I need to be good at ministering sermons to save my entire nation. But she was just beautiful. And that was a gift that God gave her. And she used that gift to approach the king, to save her people. So it's God gives people gifts, and that might be unconventional sometimes. It might be something that, we've never really seen before. We've never seen someone use a certain gift for God, but any gift can be used for God.
I've never thought of that.
I know.
Yeah.
I
Beauty
never
being the gift.
I know.
Right?
I was just whoa. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's really cool. There's a verse in the Bible. It's in I lost my place now. Yeah, Colossians 4 verse 5. It says, "Live wisely among those who are not believers, and make the most of every opportunity." I think that really speaks to intentionality, right? Make the most of every opportunity in the calling that God has placed on our lives. You guys aren't leaders at Great Lakes Adventist Academy because you have great leadership skills, which you do, but God has called you to that position.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And now what are you going to do with it, right?
Yeah. I in the girls' dorm, like we have this like big sister, little sister thingy, and that's like sometimes we'd have like, oh, it's big sister, little sister worship time. So instead of dorm worship, we go to like the rooms or our rooms of like the big sister or the little sister, and like we have worship. And like we talked about this in leadership camp, like at least among me and my 2 other friends, and we were like thinking like we could also like add intentionality to that. Like I remember like those worships used to be like tiring for me. I'm like, oh, I don't want to go. It's just, we're just gonna like open a devotion book or like a storybook and like read it, pray, that's it. So for like after leadership camp, when we came back, we had a big sister, little sister worship thing, and I'm the big sister. So what I did for my little sister is like I actually tried for the first time, and it was different. Like it was different. Like they opened up, and then like we were just like having a really good conversation about like, I forgot what it was, but it was really meaningful.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool that when you're intentional, God has called you to be intentional in your life. Other people are blessed by that.
Yeah.
But in turn, we're blessed by that as well.
Yeah.
And it's putting intentionality into the small things.
Yeah.
Because you'd think that, oh, I want to put it into the big things, but like it's the everyday interactions that need intentionality sometimes. You know, it's a small ministering, and sometimes like ministering doesn't have to be like whole sermons or entire things like that. It could just be a small interaction that changes someone's life.
Yeah.
So, and it's like, you know, that metaphor where one small water drop creates a ripple that goes and goes and goes. Can be like that, you know, pass it on, be kind to someone, you know, invite someone to sit at your table, say something nice to someone, because, you know, kindness is forgotten and we want to do big things, but little things are important too.
For sure. I just got a charge for the audience real quick. Remember to be intentional today. Make sure you are doing the hard thing that gets the right reward. Relevant out.
Relevant was hosted by Trey Slickers and co-hosted by Naia Mamarimbing. Our guests today were Javan Yang and Dalwin Garcia. Today's show was produced by Alexander Winkler and recorded on the campus of Great Lakes Adventist Academy. Don't forget to check out our website, relevant.show, where you can send us a message or learn more about what we do. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.